didn't say the translation.
Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Baradhari Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Krishna is the lover of Radha. He displays many amorous pastimes in the groves of Vrindavan. He is the lover of the cowherd maidens of Vraja, the holder of the great hill named Govardhan, the beloved son of Mother Yasoda, the delighter of the inhabitants of Vraja, and he wanders in the forests along the banks of the river Jamuna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Are we not even allowed to chant Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya? Let's try it again. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 4, text number 27. Shri Sukha Uvacha. Are we not even chanting the verse? Sorry? Only 5. All right, I'll just read the verse and we'll... Shri Sukha Uvacha. Iti saha vidurena vishvamurta gunakataya sudaya plavitoro tapaha chanam iti puline yamasvasustam samushita aupagavair nisham tato gat. Translation. Sukadeva Goswami said, O king, after thus discussing with Vidura the transcendental name, fame, qualities, etc., on the bank of the Jamuna, Uddhava was overwhelmed with great affliction. He passed the night as if it were a moment, and thereafter he went away. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The word used here by Krishna, the word used here for Krishna is Vishvamurtiya. Both Uddhava and Vidura were in great affliction because of Lord Krishna's departure. And the more they discussed the transcendental name, fame, and qualities of the Lord, the more the picture of the Lord became visible to them everywhere. Such visualization of the transcendental form of the Lord is neither false nor imaginary, but is factual, absolute truth. When the Lord is perceived as Vishvamurtiya, it is not that he loses his personality or transcendental eternal form, but he becomes visible in the same form everywhere. Umagyanati mirandasya gyananjana shalakaya chakshu unmilitam jena tasmai Shri Guruve namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Shtapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vikshabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakopa Truviyascha Kupasindo Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakund Radhakund Giri Govardhana Ki Jai. Slipped into the Premadani praise. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Namahum Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nevishesha Sunyavadi Paschachade Shatarane Mukham Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langyati Yatkripatam Hamande Shri Gurundina Dharanam. The more they discuss the transcendental name, form, and qualities of the Lord, the more the picture of the Lord became visible to them everywhere. Such visualization of the transcendental form of the Lord is neither false nor imaginary, but is factual, absolute truth. When the Lord is perceived as Vishnu, Vishvamurti, it is not that he loses his personality or transcendental eternal form, but he becomes visible in the same form everywhere. The English language is it's a funny language. It's not, in one sense, an organic language. It's made up of words. The estimate is about 80% of the words in the English language are what they call borrowed words. They come from other languages. And the word ignore, ignorance, or ignorant, different computations of that word come from Latin. And but they developed certain ways of pronunciation in the English language, and it's considered, if you don't pronounce a word in one way or another, you don't actually even understand what the word means. So if we think of the word ignore, and then we have ignorant and ignorance. So it's just a shift in pronunciation to say it one way or another. You could say ignorant or ignorant. You could say ignorance or ignorance. Ignorance. The root is to ignore. So what does ignore really mean? Just say there's somebody here in the room here now, and a day or two earlier you had a big fight with them, and it's not been resolved. There's been no reconciliation. There's been no completion. So what happens when you walk in the room and you see that person, or they see you? What do? You ignore them. You don't give them any attention. Actually, I was talking with Vaisheshika Prabhu recently about book distribution on the street. And he was talking about how after a certain time of practicing it, of being out there and being buffeted by all of the kind of responses and reactions and so on that you get from people, you become selective in who you approach. And he said one of the key factors is whether people ignore you or not. He said, you're standing out there, you've got books in your hand, you've got a bag on, and how many years has this been going on, where there's a Hare Krishna person in one kind of guise or another, standing there with books in the street. I mean, I got a book on the street in 1974. So just right, that's nearly 50 years, 47 years right there. People are very familiar with this. So he was saying, you're standing there, everybody knows you're there. Everybody knows why you're there. But he said, you stand there and you look from person to person. And a very key indicator about whether you can actually approach that person is if they return your gaze. It's a very clear indication to another person, I don't want anything to do with you if you won't have eye contact. They look at you, you look away. You just, and move through. So this is ignorance. Something is there, you are aware of it, but you ignore it. So long ago, an inconceivable amount of time ago, Prabhupada uses the phrase, since time immemorial. Since time immemorial, we have been ignoring Krishna. Another reason for ignoring is forget about it. Don't want to know about it. Don't want to know. Forget it. I want to forget it. I want to forget you. So we're not independent in our desires. We have desires. We always have desires. We never have no desire. There's the joke of the cartoon, what do they call it? A meme. There's the meme of the young Buddhist monk sitting in front of the abbot and saying, please, how do I become free of the desire to be desireless? That's a very interesting point that's being made there. We can never be free from desire. Even to be desireless is a desire. The reason why that is because desire is a quality of the soul. In the purport to Bhagavad Gita chapter 5 verse 15, where Prabhupada gives a very good elaboration on the nature of desire and how it is fulfilled, he has the sentence about the living entity. He says, because he is a living being, he has the capacity to desire by his free will. A very profound statement. Just a few words. Prabhupada says so much. That's a sutra. A sutra in the English language. Because he is a living being, he has the capacity to desire by his own free will. So desire is inherent, it's eternally established in the living being. Because we are living beings, we have desire. And we have desire by our free will. We can desire anything we want. We are free to do that. So we were talking last week about how envy arises in the heart. And as a result of becoming envious of Krishna, we have desired to forget him. We have chosen to ignore him. And as a result of that ignorance, forgetfulness has been awarded to us. Krishna gives whatever you want. So we wanted to ignore Krishna, we wanted to forget Krishna, so Krishna facilitates that. In that same purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that the living entity is not able to satisfy his desires. We are dependent in the satisfaction of desire. We are not independent in the satisfaction of desire. This understanding of the nature of our independence is a very important point to comprehend, because in the process of the development of transcendental knowledge, we can fall into the trap of thinking, when we have some realization that we are not this body, that we are Brahman, that we are separate living entity, the mistake that we make then is that we are in control, that we are the absolute truth. But we are not the absolute truth. We are part and parcel of the absolute truth. But the absolute truth has to be comprehended completely. Vedanti tat tatva vidas tatvam yajnanam advayam brahmati paramatmati bhagavan iti subjite. The supreme absolute truth is a non-dual substance, progressively realized as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. And the quality of Bhagavan is that he is the source of all opulences, and that he is eternal, and that he is omniscient, and that he is omnipresent. He is omnipresent. We always are, and always have been, and always will be, as they say, in the presence of God. The problem is, since time immemorial, we have been ignoring him. And as a result, we've become ignorant of him, because there is no place where there is no activity. There is no end to activity. Nahi kaschit chanapi jatu tishtatya kamakrit. Everyone in the material world is forced to act helplessly according to the qualities they have acquired from their association with the modes of material nature. So our choice to ignore Krishna means there's not nothing. The reason why we have chosen to ignore Krishna is because we want to pay very close attention to Maya. We want to pay very close attention. The five ignorant qualities and practices that are inculcated into the living entity when he chooses to turn away from Krishna are material attachment, false ego, envy, absorption in material things, and I can't remember the fifth. Does anybody remember? We'll just deal with those four. Maybe the fifth will come to me. False ego, material attachment, envy, and illusion. Yes, illusion. False ego, illusion, envy, material attachment, and then material absorption. These are the progressive stages of entanglement into the material world. But it begins with becoming envious of Krishna. and therefore wanting to ignore Krishna, because the desire which arises in the heart is the desire to be Krishna, or to be in Krishna's position, to have all that Krishna has, all that is rightfully Krishna's. Two very distinct definitions of envy that Srila Prabhupada gives. Something is rightfully yours, but I will not let you have it. Just like with Dhritarashtra. In Prabhupada's lecture on the first verse of the Bhagavad Gita, he points this out. Something is rightfully yours. In other words, the kingdom was rightfully the Pandavas. But Dhritarashtra and right alongside him, Duryodhana, will not let you have it. We all know that example, that story of when Duryodhana was approached to say, just give them a village each. Just give these 5 Pandavas a village each. He says, I will not give them the earth that will fit under the tip of a pin. Although it is rightfully theirs, he won't let them have it. This is envy. And the other thing, also exhibited very strongly by Duryodhana, is the concept that I cannot tolerate the prominence of another in any way at all. Yeah, it's said about Duryodhana, he was in such a mood that he would not tolerate the prominence of anything over him. He would not even have an umbrella over his head. Nothing over me. But there's nothing over Krishna. There's nothing beyond Krishna. What is that verse? I just forgot that verse. Sutri Mani Ganariva. How does that begin? Mata para taram nanyat kinchidasti dananjaya mai savamidang protam sutri mani ganariva. There is no truth superior to me. Everything rests upon me as pearls are strung on a thread. Pearls are strung on a thread. There is no truth superior to me. We need to understand what that means very clearly. Krishna's not talking about that at the end of the football season when he just won the premiership, knowing that there's another season coming and it's all up for grabs again. It's not that Krishna fought his way to the top of the pile and is presently, or at that time, and this is one thing that impersonalists argue, that was then. Krishna was saying that then. But Krishna's gone now, and it's an open field for anybody else. But everything rests upon me as pearls are strung on a thread. That is why Krishna, there is no truth superior to Krishna. But the difficulty is because of our long ignorance of Krishna, our long forgetfulness of Krishna, then all we see is matter. That's all we see now. We don't see what this matter is. In the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, in one purport, Srila Prabhupada says Krishna is always present before us as this material energy. One way or another, Krishna is always before us. The trouble is, we have voluntarily accepted this covering, which enables us, disables us, and enables us to only see certain things which are there, but which we cannot see. Now that's not a very difficult concept to understand, especially in this modern world, where we have microscopes and telescopes and so many instruments that enable us to see things that are actually right there in front of us. But because of the limitations of our senses, we can't see them. So, and this is presented as science. This is presented as science. And Srila Prabhupada used to like to present the science of Krishna consciousness. So we have to see what are the instruments of the science of Krishna consciousness. And the most important instrument of the science of Krishna consciousness is being discussed here, where it says, the more they discuss the transcendental name, form, qualities of the Lord, the more the picture of the Lord became visible to them everywhere. It's no accident. There are no accidents in the Sanskrit language and in the grammar of Sanskrit, and therefore the syntax of words in statements. So it's no accident that when Prahlad talks about the 9 processes of devotional service, he begins with Shravanam Kirtanam. Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu. Then Smarana. First of all, there must be hearing. We must be hearing about the Lord. The reality that we actually come to perceive is based upon what we hear. But we hear only about illusion. We are immersed in illusion. This is one of the coverings. Illusion. We are in illusion. And what does illusion mean? Illusion means we see something to be what it actually is not. I discussed this a few weeks ago about the concept of hypnotism. How you can hypnotize a person in such a way that you will be able to tell them that when you come out of this sleep that you're in right now, I'll enter into a discussion with you, and at a certain point I'll offer you an onion and I'll tell you it's an apple, and you will bite into it and relish it as the most tasteful apple that you've ever had. This is illusion. This is illusion. That which is not. So immersed in illusion, all of the so-called knowledge that we acquire by looking into it more and more and more, microscopically or macroscopically, is simply taking us deeper and deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole of illusory existence. Because what is it all? Bhumir apo nalo vayu kangmano buddharevacha ahankara iti yangme bina prakritirastata. It's my separated material energies, Krishna says. And there's another great example of ignorance. So many, Prabhupada says, so many commentaries on Bhagavad Gita. But do they accept Krishna? My material energies, my separated material energy, they belong to Krishna. They are non-different from Krishna. He says separated. They are not separate from Krishna. It's not that the material energy is there and Krishna stumbles upon it one day and says, well, what's this stuff? Let me see what I can do with this. It's not like that. It is the material energy is non-different from Krishna. But of course, we need to understand that in the context of our philosophy. It is simultaneously, inconceivably, the same as and different from Krishna. But it is Krishna's. It is his. But that is ignored by envious commentators. Prabhupada uses that word there, envious commentators. Envious of Krishna. And so long as that envy of Krishna is there, you will never see him. He'll never be revealed, or he will never reveal himself. He'll never unmask himself. He'll never uncover. Your eyes will never be uncovered from the curtain of Mahamaya, And the curtain of Yogamaya that surrounds Krishna will never be removed. Naham prakasha savasya Yogamaya samavra. I'm never revealed to foolish and unintelligent. And who are they? Avajananti mam muda manusham tanamashva. Those who think that Krishna has assumed this form and personality. That's a very interesting concept as well, because we are by nature Satchitananda Vigraha. And although we have covered ourselves and covered ourselves and covered ourselves in so many layers of ignorance, still, deep down inside, knowledge is there. And actually inherent within us is the understanding that we are not these bodies. But due to our ignorance of Krishna, we've come to the conclusion, when we hear about him, that he's just like me. This Krishna, this form, this personality, it's just an assumption. It has been assumed. But actually, there is something beyond Krishna. There is something beyond Krishna. And Tattvam Asmi, I am that which is beyond Krishna. I am that. This is all illusion. And as I'm saying, it's all based upon hearing the wrong thing. Hearing the wrong thing. Very dangerous to be stuck in an impersonal conception of the absolute truth. It takes many births to get beyond that. Bahunam janmanam ante jnanavam man prapachate vasudeva savamiti sa mahatma sudurlabha. Very rarely seen. In one commentation on that verse, Prabhupada said, the impersonalist, Jnanavan, the one who's been cultivating all kinds of impersonal knowledge and understanding of the Absolute, when he finally comes to the realization and the understanding, Vasudeva Savamiti, first off he's puzzled. What? A person? A person? What do you mean a person? Because the energy of the Lord under which we are struggling is so powerful and so overwhelming that we can't understand that there's a person who's on top of all of this. There's a person who controls all this. I can't control it. We try together to gain some kind of control over it. But one person? One person? And this Krishna's claiming that it's him? Who does he think he is? God? Well, yes. Yes. You might as well face it. Stop ignoring the fact. The fact is, and Prabhupada, he says this so many times, doesn't he? How many times in his commentaries does he repeat? Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In one paragraph he'll say it sometimes, 2-3 times. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Why does he have to repeat that so often? A, because it's obvious, and B, because we don't see it. We don't see it. And the reason we don't see it anymore is because, as I said at the beginning, at some time in the immemorial past, we did not accept it anymore. That's why the concept of submission to a spiritual master is very important. Inquire from him submissively. That idea of submission challenges people. Why should I submit? Why should I submit? I don't have to submit. I'm independent. I'm free. But that again is another illusion. Yes, you are independent. Yes, you are free. But you are anu, you are tiny. Krishna is vibhu, inconceivably vast. And we've come under. What does he say at the end of the 10th chapter? Forget about all of this, Arjuna. Don't worry about all of this detailed information. Suffice it to understand that with but a spark of my splendor, I pervade and sustain this entire universe. A spark. When I was a kid, we didn't have the kind of paraphernalia that kids have now. You know, we had kind of sticks and stones and whatever, not much else to play with. And it was a great game, actually, at night to be out at dusk or just after sunset with stones on the bitumen roads. And I lived in the country. They weren't really nicely sealed tarmac. They were bitumen. And they had stones in them. It was gravel mixed with bitumen, with tar, and that became the road. So the surface of it was broken up. There were dints and things and little stones sticking up. It wasn't perfectly flat. And if in the dark you threw a stone down on that, there'd be a spark, just like that, and gone, just like that, just a spark. So you think of that, just a spark, a universe. What to speak of this universe? Countless millions of universes. And this is the smallest one. Universes with Brahmas with millions of heads. The universe is so big. A spark. Krishna's pervading and sustaining the whole thing with a spark. And we need to hear these things. We need to be hearing this. That's why Shravanam is so important. Everything in our consciousness, actually, when you begin to analyze, everything in our consciousness is based upon what we've heard. What we've heard. And the problem is, we haven't heard the truth. We've heard the illusion. We've been immersed in the illusion, materially absorbed. Materially absorbed. That's a very interesting idea, absorption. Just like you put a sponge down on some water and it absorbs the water. The water vanishes. We just vanish into the material energy. Actually, that's where the word bloop came from. Bloop. It's Prabhupada coined the word bloop. There was a discussion one time about a devotee who'd left, and the idea was being discussed that you leave Krishna consciousness and you simply jump back into the material ocean. But the material ocean is so vast, and you are so small. You get up on the prow of the good ship Bhakti and think, I'm out of here, and you take a big nosedive and think, how wonderful this beautiful dive. Everybody should see this. Here I go, and now I'm back in the material world. You just vanish, like you throw a stone in the water and the sound is there. Bloop. Try it sometime. Go throw a stone into water, and just one stone, and listen. Bloop. And where does it go? It just vanishes. It just vanishes. And we've vanished from ourselves. What to speak of vanished from Krishna? If you want to vanish from Krishna, if you want to ignore Krishna, you have to ignore yourself. There's no compromise. Because you are the eternal servant of Krishna. We are all the eternal servants of Krishna. We are all eternally related to Krishna. We all have an eternal, personal, individual relationship with Krishna. So if you want to forget Krishna, you have to forget the relationship. And if you want to forget the relationship, you're going to forget yourself. Our very identity is that relationship. We have no other identity. But we don't see that anymore because we've been ignoring it for a very long time. So here we see two great devotees sitting in the Vishwamurti. They're sitting in the universal form. We're all sitting in the universal form of the Lord, in one part of it or another, seeing matter. So they're sitting there, and externally that's what's happening. They're seeing the material world. They're meeting in a certain place, as it says here. He's there and he's talking with Vidura. They pass the night as if it were a moment, and thereafter he went away from there and he went to another part of the universal form. He went to Bhagavata Ashray. But in that situation we see they're discussing. That means they're hearing and they're chanting. One is saying, one is hearing. One is hearing, one is saying. Speaking. And the more they discuss the transcendental name, fame, and qualities of the Lord, the more the picture of the Lord became visible to them everywhere. Such visualization of the transcendental form of the Lord is neither false nor imaginary, but is factual, absolute truth. Even when we are, as the next sentence says, when the Lord is perceived as Vishwamurti, it is not that he loses his personality or transcendental eternal form, but he becomes visible in the same form everywhere through the process of hearing and chanting about him. Because the assumption of forms for the eyes of the conditioned soul is just another mystic potency of the Lord. It doesn't mean he has vanished. Just because we don't see something, it doesn't mean it's not there. We don't see the Lord anymore, but he's always present before us in one way or another. In one way or another. But actually, no way can be satisfying to the soul, to the living entity, until one is again in touch with the personal form and personality of the Lord. Because that is what we're missing. What we're missing. And until the mind comes back to that, until we can bring the mind back to that, to the point where we are actually fixed on the truth, on the actual fact, the factual absolute truth. The factual absolute truth is Naham Prakasha Savash. I'm sorry, I forgot it again, the first line. Mata Parataram Nanyat Kinchidasti Dhananjaya. Mai Savamidang Protam Sutre Mani Ganariva. The actual form, the actual truth is the Supreme Lord, our relationship with him, and the process of service to him by which that relationship is realized. And if we don't have that, this is the point Narad's making. This is why the Bhagavatam exists. When Narad comes to Vyasa in Vyasa's disconsolate state, he says, your problem is that you have not delineated the name, fame, quality, form of the Lord, of Krishna. And then he says, the mind is like a rudderless boat if that is not there, because you have to fix your mind on something. You have to. There is nowhere where there is nothing. There is always something, and we become absorbed by it. In the material world, we become absorbed. We vanish into the material world. And we live keeping as far away from ourselves as we can. Because I'm absorbed in this, I'm attached to this now, and all the forms that this presents, and all the variety that this presents, all the opportunities that this presents for me to gratify my senses as the center of everything, as the center of my world. No matter how big or small that world may be, I'm the center of it. And we're very proud of that. Very proud of that. That's another thing about semantics. Krishna says humility, pridelessness. He doesn't say pridelessness, humility. The first principle of knowledge is humility, not pridelessness. Pridelessness can only come when there is complete humility. But as long as we are proud of our so-called selves in this world, then nothing is revealed to us. And pride is a very, very dangerous thing. And in this age, Prabhupada says, pride, even the pauper is proud of his penny. I remember when I was a kid, a teenager, the Star Trek thing was just starting on television, and they had some very interesting stories, moral stories. And in one episode I saw, actually it was about pride. They came from this planet, same kind of concept as we're talking about with the Kurukshetra war, that somebody had usurped somebody else's position and they weren't going to give it up, and that person was very, very proud, a proud person. And in the course of the unraveling of the story, that person lost everything. But then the person who he'd lost everything to, whose property it rightfully was very magnanimous to him, was offering him, well, you don't have to be shamed and outcast here. You can be a part of this new society. And he wouldn't do it. And his final word as he left is, I may have lost everything, but I still have my pride. I may have lost everything, but I still have my pride. So these things are no accident. The way the science comes to us is no accident. And just like any good recipe, if you follow it, the cake comes out of the oven in due course of time. So if we follow the process and we take the example of great souls like Uddhava and Vidura here, how simply by discussing the transcendental name, form and qualities of the Lord, the more they did that, the more the picture of the Lord became visible to them everywhere. Hare Krishna. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Yes.
I remember one time someone asked Srila Prabhupada if Krishna was in every atom or something, and he said, I don't know the exact words, but to the effect that Krishna and all his, and everything in Vrindavan and all his associates are with him and everything.
Yeah, Krishna is, this is inconceivable. This is a reality. Because Prabhupada always made the point that Krishna is never alone. Krishna is never alone. Yeah. Yes?
Why is that material nature is so strong and it feels like it's stronger than Krishna sometimes? Like even though we are in Krishna, and we know that Krishna owns material nature.
What was the first part of why is what?
Why is his nature so strong?
Well, because if she wasn't, you wouldn't be attracted. If something is to distract you from Krishna, it has to be very powerful. It has to be very attractive. And the other point about that is her role is to keep you. Krishna doesn't want us to come to the material world. We're not sent here by Krishna. We're here because we want to be here. And Krishna tries to dissuade us from coming here. That won't be good. That'll be bad. The result, don't do it. But we insist. So it's a sanction. Krishna sanctions it. All right, go. And then Prabhupada explains that Krishna doesn't want us to come to the material world. But once we're here, he doesn't want us to leave until we want to. Until we want to. And we have been in the material world pursuing material desires since time immemorial. And this is just our parabdhakam. This is just a little grain of sand of what's dormant, what's yet to come. And it's all based upon our desire. I want, I want, I want. And Krishna doesn't interfere with your desires, because the essence of our relationship, the essence of all relationship, the essence is love. We are all lovers of Krishna. We all love Krishna, but we've been ignoring that and we've forgotten that. But in love there can be no force. You can't force somebody to love you. No. Love is free. It's freely given and it's freely received. So long as we have some material desire, what does that mean? It means we don't want Krishna. So therefore, Krishna's reaction to that is, okay, have whatever you want. But we don't get Krishna until we don't want anything else. And it's not like you don't get Krishna at all until you don't want anything else. It's a progressive process. I talked about that before. We are transitioning. We are transitioning. So little drops of water wear away the stone. And the beauty of our process is neha bikrama nashosti pratyavayo na vidyate. Gradually, the influence of Maya recedes.